Hello, I'm Brian Davis with Home Improved Man. We're going to look at fixing a sticking door. What usually happens is that someplace on the door it starts to catch the door frame. It often happens when doors have been painted a few times. It's particularly problematic in summer months where humidity is an issue. And so the first thing you want to look at is, without fully closing the door, coming over and taking a look at how the door is closing. And if you take a closer look at it, you'll see that the gap at the bottom of the door is wider than the gap at the top of the door. In fact, there really is no gap at the top of the door. That is where it is catching. And so the next thing we want to check is it possible that one of the hinges has come loose? And so if we move to the hinge side of the door and making sure the door is just slightly ajar so that it's not leaning or catching on the door frame, looking at the size of the gap on the hinge side. If the gap is even all the way across, the last thing you can do is give the door a little push towards the hinges and seeing if there's any movement. If there is none, then we know that the problem is due to either swelling in the door. It could be caused to the settling of the house. Whatever the issue is, we have the door catching at the top, not at the bottom. So the way that we'll address it is by sanding away some of the door at the top. In order to figure out where we're going to sand, I'm going to pull the door almost fully closed, and again looking for where it is catching, and the gap in the middle is fairly good. There's a little bit of the worst offender is at the top, but there's also a little bit at the bottom that I'm seeing. So I'm going to take my pencil and draw some marks along the door, trying to keep the angle of the pencil the same as I draw down, so that the distance or the amount of wood that I'm going to be taking off accurately reflects the distance from the door to the door jamb. I'm going to put another mark down here, just a small one. And then the next step is to take the door off of the hinges. The way to take the door off the hinges, you don't want to unscrew the door, because the more times you unscrew and screw the screws back into the hole, you start to damage the hole and it becomes harder to get a good seat with the screw. So the most effective way is to take the hinges off, and I'll show you on the other side of the door. The way that we take the hinges off the door, you'll need three tools. A screw, a nail that we can knock the hinge up from the bottom, and then a screwdriver that has a broad flat tip at the end to continue prying it up. So first I'll take the nail, place it in the bottom of the hole, and then I will use the screw to knock the hinge fully up. The more vertical I can hold the screwdriver, the easier it's going to be, because instead of pushing the screw or the hinge at the door, I'm pushing the pin out of the hinge. There's one. Now on this one, I think I can do it without using the nail. So I'm going to try and just push up. If I don't have a lot of space to use the full hammer, I'll turn the hammer sideways. And as you can see, the door is already coming off the hinge. Using my leg to hold the door in place so I don't completely lose it. If you have a second set of hands, a person that can help you holding the door would be wise. Alright, so now the door comes off easily, and when we're finished we can put it right back in place. we'll now begin the sanding. To sand the door, we're going to use 2 sanders. You don't have to use them both. This belt sander is a pretty aggressive sander. Not everybody has one. It's not necessary. If all you have is the orbital sander, it'll work just as well. To start out, I'll use the belt sander because it does a lot. It's a lot more aggressive, which is also why you don't necessarily have to have one, and it's not as necessary in the household arsenal. I'm looking to keep the belt fully against the side of the door, and I'm going to be sanding it down to the marks that I made on the door. Depending on how you made the marks, you might want to go just to the pencil. If you kept the mark fairly close to the door frame, you want to sand it until the pencil mark goes away. Last thing I'll say about this is that you might find with a little bit of pressure that the door moves across the tables. If you're tall enough, you can lay the door on its edge, be careful of the hinges, and hold the door between your legs and sand it that way. But you want to make sure you still have a clear view of the pencil marks. Door is sanded, we'll put it in place. And as I'm putting it in place, I can also check to make sure that it fits better than it did before. The way I do that is by setting it in the frame, and then the handle side of the door is going to help hold it in place while I set the hinges. Hinges basically line up. Might take a little bit of wiggling to get the pin back into the hinge. I shouldn't have to bang very hard to get it into place. And then we test the door. Still catches just a little bit, and because we're in the early spring, I might find that come summertime I want to take a little bit more off, but it's a whole lot better than it was, since a few minutes ago the door wouldn't shut at all. I hope you found this helpful. Feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.